Hello, my name is Juergen Steinmetz from Livestream.travel in Honolulu. Today we will meet Jadine Yarde and her team. Jadine is the CEO of the Nevis Tourism Authority. Navis is part of Nevis and St. Kitts, an independent island state in the Eastern Caribbean. And the unique thing about Nevis, known for high-level tourism, is that Nevis was able to remain corona-free through these crises. However, the tourism industry is closed, the borders are closed, but Nevis is doing everything to prepare for tomorrow and for the reopening of tourism, what I understand will happen in October. Nevis is an example for many, so we're looking forward speaking to Jadine, getting her secret and learn about their plans and the island of Nevis, and this will be followed with a Q&A. You will also meet Dr. Peter Tarlow, our partner for rebuilding.travel and head of Safer Tourism. And our guest, our co-host again, will also be Dr. Taleb Rifai, who was the former Secretary General of the UNWTO. Enjoy our podcast, and we'll start right after this message. Aloha and good morning, everyone. My name is Juergen Steinmetz. I'm joining you from our beautiful island of Oahu in Hawaii. And in the background, you see actually my beach where I lived for 25 years. I'm no longer there. It's a virtual background. I'm now in Honolulu, where everything is. And I thought it would be very appropriate today to talk about a different island that has maybe even more wonderful beaches than we do here in Oahu. And so we'll be focusing on the island of Nevis in the Caribbean. And we have the CEO of the Nevis Tourism Board, Jadine Yarde, joining us. And there will be two more of her colleagues coming in later. Devon Liburd, he is the Director of Sales and Marketing, and we have Claxton, Sales and Marketing Manager. And the format is, as we always do at rebuilding.travel, is very informal. I will mute everyone to avoid background. So when you speak, just basically you can unmute yourself. I will mute everyone. You can unmute yourself, and this way you can easily speak. Also, there is a alert button when you click on chat or on participants.
Hello?
It's a blue button.
All right, I'm just finishing the conference and then I'll call you back.
Okay, just 1 second, please. There's a blue button, and this blue button is raising your hand. So when it comes to Q&A, this is a very good way of getting everyone's attention so we can get you the microphone. Before we get started, of course, I will give it to my co-host, Dr. Peter Tarlow, in just a few minutes. I'd like to introduce also and welcome Dr. Taleb Rifai, who just joined us. Taleb was, and I'm sure almost all of you know this, was the former Secretary General of the United Nations World Tourism Organization for 2 terms. He's based in Amman, Jordan. Welcome, Taleb, and he has been a loyal supporter and co-host on this forum from the very beginning, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Juergen.
Thank you so much, and we give you the microphone in just a minute before we get started. And of course, my partner in this entire operation is Dr. Peter Tarlow. He's joining us from Texas. And as you know, Peter is an expert in travel safety and security and has been working in this field for many, many years. I will now mute everyone, and so we can get started maybe just with a word from Taleb. And but let me just mute everyone so we can have less background noise. Okay, I think this is done. Okay, wonderful. Taleb, why don't you say hello and say how and let us know how things are in Amman, Jordan this morning.
Well, thank you so much, Juergen. It's always a pleasure to be with you and with the nice group of people that are always here with us. I've been a supporter of this activity from the very beginning, because I believe in Juergen and I believe in what he's doing. I think that that's a very important thing to have nowadays. We're living in difficult times now, and nothing is for certain at all. In Jordan, like everybody else, like any other place, we did very well at the beginning. Now there is a new wave, so to speak, or so they call it. People are beginning to get anxious and angry again, frustrated. This is natural. We all expected that, those that could see things ahead. Nowadays, we have about 40, 50 infections every day. We used to go down to 1 or 2 every day for 10 days, 12 days. The last week was a bad week. So I believe that this is the story of every country around the world. Now, I have a lot to talk about. I'd rather be listener now. I will take your permission, Juergen, to speak later on.
Thank you very much.
Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we're really excited to welcome Jadine Yarde. I have to admit, I don't know very little about Navis. I know where it is. I looked it up on the map and I saw the pictures. It's absolutely stunning. And I know that I wanted to travel there one of these days. But she will tell us more. But I wanted to officially hand over to Peter in Texas to say hello and to help lead this forum. Good morning, Peter.
Good afternoon from Texas. So Juergen likes to say aloha. So I feel as a Texan that it's my responsibility to say howdy, which is the Texan word for aloha. Once again, it's a beautiful, warm day here in Texas, about 104 degrees, or if you prefer the Celsius scale, probably about 41, 42. So it's both humid and hot. It's like living in a boiling bottle of oil of Olay. That's why we have beautiful skin. So I say that kind of is a joke, but I think part of what we're doing is the ability to learn how to take negatives and turn them into positives. And we can't stop the negative things that take place in the world, but we can come up with creative ideas so that we either lessen the negative impact or we're able to create new ideas, new ways of hopefully by the end of this year or next year, be able to truly reopen tourism. It won't be the same. It's going to be different, but it's going to be hopefully maybe something even a little better. The Caribbean, and I'm sure that we'll be hearing a lot about that very soon, but just as a word of introduction, is kind of unique. Many of the Caribbean nations are very small. I work with a number of them across the region, and you're not going to have a lot of local or domestic tourism in a country that's only 7 miles wide and maybe 10 miles long. So at first you would see that domestic tourism is almost not at all possible. But if we think about it, it actually does become possible. For example, I won't mention any countries right now by name, but in some of the Caribbean islands, the hotels have invited people from the island to spend a weekend or a day or 4 or 5 days being pampered. So you don't have to cook at home. You don't have to wash dishes. You don't have to clean. You can still go to a local hotel and feel like you've gone someplace, even if you have only traveled 4 or 5 miles or 10 kilometers from your home. So that's going to be a real challenge for the Caribbean. I think it's very interesting. The second big challenge for the Caribbean is the need to have better air communication. To a great extent, air communication in the Caribbean takes place through Miami. It's dominated, for better or for worse, and some might say worse, by American Airlines, which tends to be expensive. And getting from one Caribbean island to another often means you're stuck going through Miami and then back to the place that you want to go. So a trip of 2 or 3 hours can end up becoming 10 hours because of layovers. And that also creates other problems as far as entry into the United States, visas, et cetera, et cetera. So even transit trips are not always easy. It's getting a little bit better. Some of the Caribbean islands now are developing airlines, but the problem is because the amount of people that each country has is so small, and the economies are so small that it's very hard to import new things, to create new areas. I finished with a good friend of mine, Dr. Andrew Spencer, who is the head of tourism for the University of the West Indies. We finished last week our new book on tourism security for the Caribbean. And one of the things that we had to look at is the issue of even getting medications into the Caribbean. And because again, they can't produce anything. Almost everything has to be imported. And so that becomes a challenge. So our challenge today is not to look at the problems that I just outlined, but rather to think about what creative solutions can we come up with to allow these nations that are so tourism dependent. For many of them, it's 80% of their GDP comes out of tourism, to recover, to create some form of at least holding the line, to deal with the two sides of arrivals, which is either by air or by cruise ships. Now, many of the cruise ships come out of the United States, and some of the large cruise liners have now announced there'll be no cruises until the end of the year, which means that will tremendously impact the winter season, which is the heart of the cruise industry. So again, this is going to become a really fascinating concept. If we can get through this, we can get through anything. And maybe that's a good way to begin. So we cannot think of it as a negative. We have to, again, be able to think, how are we able to face these problems working together rather than competing against each other, working with each other to be able to create new innovative ideas and perhaps create a tourism that will be different. It may not be the mass tourism of the past. It may have to be a very different type of tourism, but a tourism that will be sustainable, ecologically friendly, will not destroy the environment, and will be able to still provide the economic well-being that the peoples of the Caribbean need. So I'm going to, at that point, turn it over and let discussion begin. And
yeah, and Peter,
please ask us questions.
I think what we should do is Navis, of course, has a very, very special situation, because right now, from what I understand, Navis doesn't have a coronavirus. They don't have a problem. And that's why I thought it was so interesting to invite Navis and get a background. Maybe before we start this discussion, we should give the team of three from Navis maybe give us a rundown how the situation is in Navis, what Navis's plans are, so we can get to know this better and maybe include this in the discussion. Would that be okay, Peter?
I think that'd be great, because that way we can learn from them and come up with new creative ideas.
So let's give it to let's give the microphone to Jadine. Jadine is the CEO of the Nevis Tourism Authority, and welcome, Jadine, and you can introduce your team and take the lead from here. And you have to unmute yourself, please. Just click on unmute.
Yes.
There we go. Okay.
I want to thank you all for having us on the panel today. We have the Director of Marketing, who is Devon, Liburd, on the call. He is going to speak a bit about Nevis a little later on. We have Julie Claxton, who is the Sales Manager for the UK and Europe market. And my name is Jadine Yarde. I am the CEO of the Nevis Tourism Authority. We're really grateful for this. I will preface this by there are some internet challenges. That's the one thing in the Caribbean that I wish would change, but we're going to press on as best as possible. But for those who are on the call and are not aware, Nevis is one of the sister islands of the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. We are 36 square miles. We have roughly 12,000 persons that live and dwell here. And we are really grateful that we were able to contain the virus. I will share a personal story. We were in the UK working, and we had to come back to Nevis. And the flight that we were traveling on actually was the first flight that was quarantined. So every person from that flight had to be quarantined. So this decision was made mid-air. And if that decision wasn't made, we would have had some significant issues in terms of community spread. So our health officials had the information that they needed, and they understood that there was a lot of increase in terms of the spread of the virus, both in the US and the UK market, and really globally. And they had to make that tough decision. So our borders officially closed on the 27th of March. And we actually cleared all of our cases in May. So we had 4 active cases on Nevis and 17 total in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. Health officials, I always did a tremendous job in terms of making sure that the spread did not occur, making sure that they were communicative with all persons involved, including stakeholders. And that was something that really helped us contain any issues. We were actually one of the last countries to report a case in the Caribbean. So we were one of the first to clear all cases, and we were one of the first to actually report any cases. So that is something that we are extremely grateful for. This is something that we are hoping entices people to understand that we are prepared for when the borders do reopen, to make sure that, you know, health is the top priority. We, I think, have looked at tourism from an experience, but now we have to make sure that safety and health, well, health primarily, because Peter did mention this earlier, in terms of safety is not something that we can necessarily say we can ensure, but we can definitely make sure that health is the priority in terms of when people do decide to visit. But just a little bit about Nevis. Nevis is one of the most beautiful islands, and I know everyone says that, but the Caribbean really is the heartbeat of the world. And with Nevis, it is something that, it's a place where you can actually relax and feel like you are a part of something. And I will share also my personal experience. When I first came to Nevis, you know, the experience was from St. Kitts and took the water taxi into Nevis, and the views were absolutely breathtaking. You felt like you were, you know, embarking in some journey that you didn't even know what to expect. And, you know, when you got there, people were so welcoming and so kind. And so that was something that really grabs people as soon as they land on our shores. Nevis is known for our beautiful Nevis Peak. I have not climbed the Nevis Peak yet, but I hope to do so. We're working on a lot of our protocols to make sure that everything that we do decide to embark on is very safe and as easy to navigate as possible. But Nevis, like I said, is one of the most magical places. A friend of mine had actually, I asked, you know, what is your interpretation? And it's like Jurassic Park, but with, you know, with a beautiful ocean. So that was something that, just because of how lush we are and how you know, empty beaches, we have empty beaches, we're able to really get back to self. And I think that's something that's going to be extremely important for a lot of travelers moving forward. They're going to want to find those wellness experiences, those experiences where they can kind of breathe, because COVID has taken over, to be quite honest. That's the top of everyone's mind, and the conversations are centered around that. But Nevis is definitely that place where you're able to actually release. And I think that's what we're doing very well in terms of making sure that that is our product. And when people are ready to come back, that they feel like they are part of something. So that is really, you know, just a bit about Nevis. We have been working on, you know, digital platforms, and we understand that tourism is never going to be the same. And I think we have to understand that. And I think Peter alluded to that earlier as well. We have to figure out new ways in which we can get the message across about our destinations. What makes us unique? Why will I choose you? Because, you know, safety, like I said, and health is going to be at the top of the list. And what we do have to stand on is the fact that we dealt with our you know, the spread of COVID quite well. We actually had a Nevis Health app that helped in terms of if there are any symptoms, any questions that people had when they were on island. And that also helped health officials in terms of making sure that they could control the inquiries and making sure that nothing really slipped through the cracks. And that's important with COVID, especially in a small place like Nevis. There's one person gets out there and that can cause community spread. So we understood how important that is, and we are developing further apps as a federation to make sure that when travelers do come back, they are able to get all the information that they need, that it is easy to receive, because we're going to be welcoming people from different markets as well. We all know that the US is dealing with a lot in terms of COVID right now, and other countries have dealt with the virus a bit, I guess, a bit better in terms of the numbers, I will say. And so we have to look into other markets, and we need to make sure that they are able to receive the information and that they feel confident and comfortable that when they get here, that they're being taken care of. So that is something that we are definitely looking into. We had to cancel a lot of our major events this year, one of them being the Nevis Mango Festival. We have over 40 varieties of mangoes, and I am a mango lover. I'm actually a mango enthusiast. I love everything about mangoes, and they are in season right now, so you can understand my glee. And so we had to actually cancel the event, but we decided to actually have a virtual mango festival, which was the electricity came back on. I'm very grateful for that. We actually were able to have this virtual experience, and it was amazing. We had 2 contestants from Nevis. They, battled it out. They were able to we actually had a mystery basket where they had to create a dish with mangoes included, and it was phenomenal. You can actually view it on our YouTube page and our Facebook pages. And it was really interactive, and we had over 27,000 viewers during that time. And so that is what we're going to need to do in order to stimulate person's interest and make sure that they feel like they're looking forward to something. We want to get on everyone's bucket list, to be quite honest. So that is what we're doing virtually. We're making sure we're sharing the right content, the right messaging. We actually worked on a collaboration with 8 islands, and Nevis was the ones to spearhead this collaboration. And it was between St. Martin, both the Dutch and French, Statia, Saba, Anguilla, St. Kitts, and St. Bart's. And so this video we created was really what we use or are going to use to kind of stimulate the idea of regional travel as well. We undertook to kind of take slices of heaven from each of the destinations and really, really put a spotlight on them and show that it's important for us to collaborate during this time, even in terms of what we're choosing to put in our protocols. What is working for some places that are not working for others based on the size, based on the resources. And so we're really working on that rigorously. We're having a lot of discussions. We are making sure that, we are talking to our neighbor islands and saying, hey, what are you guys doing? What's happening here? And so with that collaboration, it really was the seed, I think, that needed to be planted to show how important it is for future collaboration. So there's a lot more to share, and I'm going to let Devon speak a bit about some programs that we're working on, as well as other collaborations that we have within the island. And Julie will also talk about the UK and European market. And so we're really grateful to be on this panel. So perfect. I will.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This was a mouth-watering description of Navis, and it's time we all travel again. I feel like I'm stuck on this rock now too. I've never been in one place so long, I'm ready to go to Navis. But let's go to Devon. Devon, I think, is the director of marketing, sales and marketing for Navis. Welcome, Devon.
Good afternoon, and it's a pleasure to be here. I just firstly want to say a special good afternoon to Dr. Tarlow. Your name resonates from my days of university, where you came across as being the expert on crisis management. So it's a great pleasure to be on the same panel with you.
And I'm still working with the University of the West Indies. And we have a new book coming out, Andrew Spencer and me, and it's done, and it'll be published in just another few months, about security and health in the Caribbean and how to handle it. So we'll let you all know when that comes out. All right, that's good.
So as it relates to what we're doing here on the ground, as it relates to the pandemic, St. Kitts and Nevis, we're one federation, 2 different islands. So whatever we do on one island affects the other island. We are the smaller, the more unique of the 2 islands. So our efforts are done jointly. So we have created what we call a travel approved seal. And this is a seal that we would be issuing to all of our stakeholders in the tourism industry, that once you go through the necessary training, the necessary protocol, put the necessary protocols in place, and once you're given the okay, the all clear from the COVID compliance team, you'd be given this travel approved seal to verify that not only your business, but we're in a position to be able to adequately provide to the needs of our visitors under the conditions of COVID-19. Another area in which we have been working on, and which we have been quite successful on, over the past 4 weeks, we have been having sensitization sessions with our all the employees in the tourism sector. And I can safely say that up to today, we have captured approximately 90% of those individuals. And at the end of the process, each person would be given a certificate to show that they have gone through the sensitization session. And this is not only done in Nevis, but it's done on both islands. And it's a collaboration between the tourism authorities, the ministries of tourism, and the Ministry of Health. In this session, we covered health aspects as it relates to COVID-19. How do we as employees protect ourselves, our visitors, and by extension, the community of Nevis in an era of where we have to work amidst the whole COVID pandemic. We all know that the borders cannot remain closed forever. And once the borders are reopened, there's a high possibility that there would be some importation of COVID. So that was the purpose of having the sensitization session, whereby our employees can know how we go about protecting ourselves, how do we identify symptoms in the workplace, and what steps do we take when we have particular symptoms in order to prevent the spread. Another important component of the sensitization session has to do with customer service. We know we're living in the new normal, and for us, the new normal involved wearing a mask. The new normal involves social distancing, and Nevis is known very highly for our repeat visitors. Our employees have been seeing people over and over for the past 10 years. How do you greet an individual who you're accustomed to greet for 10 years by giving them a hug, a smack on the cheeks, etc.? How do you maintain that same level of customer service in this era? So all of those were aspects in which we would have covered. And as I indicated, we were quite successful in getting the message across to the stakeholders. And certainly those other individuals who are not captured at some point before the borders are open will endeavor to capture these individuals. On Nevis specifically, we are putting together a program which we sort of dubbed as Nevis Prepared. The borders, the Prime Minister have announced that the borders will open sometime in October, so we have to be prepared. So we have come up with this campaign where we're putting forward to not engaging the local population and also engaging the potential visitors as to we're ready, we're in a mode of readiness. What are the things that we need to do in order to protect ourselves? What do you as visitors need to take into consideration when you come on islands? So we have created public service announcements. We're putting different billboards and posters all around the island. We'll be using our social media platforms and our website to share this message that yes, COVID is here, but Nevis is prepared for when you come. And in so doing, you also should be aware of some of the protocols that we're putting in place. And of course, we're talking about social distancing. We're talking about the wearing of masks in public. We're talking about the sanitization of hands and all those kind of things that we're putting into place. And one of the things that we realize that is happening all around currently, even though we don't have a case on St. Kitts or Nevis, our residents are encouraged to follow these protocols. So the wearing of masks is mandatory in public, even at this time, so that when the time comes and when the borders are open, we don't have to be encouraging or to be fighting with people to get accustomed to the wearing of masks, etc. That system is already in place. Our people are adhering to the rules and regulations, and we know that legislations are being put in place that if you don't comply, you will be subjected to a fine. So these are some of the systems that we're putting in place to ensure that we balance the relationship with maintaining a safety environment and at the same time maintaining the economic viability of the destination.
Devon, I want to thank you because you gave a really good set of presentations. A number of people had questions. One of the questions that people wanted to know right away was, how are you dealing with the beaches and masks? Because, you know, to wear a mask in the city or in a dining room or a restaurant is one thing. Will you expect people to wear a mask if they go to the beach or if they're going scuba diving? Or, you know, how will you handle the aquatic experience along with the COVID lack of awful experience?
Well, one of the things that Nevis is known for is quite a few empty beaches.
Yes.
Right? Even on a crowded day, yes, the beaches are empty. So yes, there is a good opportunity to maintain that social distancing, to maintain your own family unit within a safe area, so that you limit the contact with different individuals. So we don't have the crowd like other destinations. So we're able to handle this much easier as it relates to people hanging out on the beaches, etc. And of course, we have the beach monitors, the security guards, etc., who are on the beaches to ensure that persons comply accordingly. We're not yet at the stage where we can really test the waters because, of course, the borders have been closed since March, and they're currently the beaches. There are limited times at which even our local population can access the beaches, and generally, again, I mean, Nevisians are not really a heavy beach user set of people. So you haven't seen that influx of persons on the beach and wanting to be close up to each other. So it's something that will have to be monitored once the borders are open, and ensure that the protocols and the systems are in place to ensure that we practice social distancing, etc., etc. As it relates to the wearing of masks on the beach, again, very uncertain as to what the protocol would be when the borders are actually open. The COVID task force are currently working on those protocols so that once the borders are open, we know exactly how to deal with these particular situations.
Thank you very much. And congratulations also to your safety seal, and we would love to invite you. And we established our own global safety and security seal, what is based on initiatives exactly like the initiative you mentioned for your country. You find our information on resilience.travel. It has not really officially been started, but we have a number of countries already lined up and to be part of this. We're going to start with Kenya, actually, and it would be great to get you guys on board. It's an international recognition of initiatives like the one you mentioned, basically, and it also includes a report from Peter and to add to make it more global and to get more awareness on a global scale for this. There's no cost to do this. And of course, we would invite Navis and anyone else who has an initiative like this, or even if you don't have one, we can help you with this, to be part of this movement. I think we have Julie. Julie is actually the person I talked to from the very beginning, and we had a number of very good email exchanges, and she was essential, I think, to put this together on the Nevis side, and I thank you for this, Julie, and welcome. Julie, by the way, I think I have to say she's the sales manager, if I get this correctly, for airline for the UK and Europe.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thanks for having us. We look forward to this afternoon. Now, my role here is that I'm the sales representative for the UK and Europe. And what came out of this entire COVID situation is that we have to look at new markets. In the past, we have been heavily dependent on the US, but I know that, you know, there's quite a lot that is happening in the US, especially with COVID being spiked again in a number of areas. So one of the things that we're doing here now in the Nevis Tourism Authority is that we're trying to find ways in which we can create or look towards other markets. And the UK and Europe is one that we will be focusing for when the borders reopen. So what we're trying to do is to reestablish ourselves in the UK market with our tour operators who have been not doing much. A number of them have not worked, but we have stayed in touch with them. So what we did previously is that we created an actual video, which is like a see you soon video. We kind of highlight, you know, Nevis. Nevis is 36 square miles and it is quite small and also one of the more relaxed island, I would say. So we are trying to appeal to persons because we know that you've been indoors for a number of months, I would say. So in order for you to feel relaxed, we are kind of, you know, looking at the wellness aspect and ways in which that we can appeal to your senses. So we're using videos to kind of highlight Nevis, to like the agriculture tours, you know, think about food that you can use to build your immune system against COVID, and also to look at the wellness aspect, as I said in the past, the hot springs. Nevis has a hot springs, so we are encouraging persons to, when they do travel to Nevis and look at the hot springs, kind of get in touch with yourself, the yoga sessions and all that. I know Devon would have mentioned earlier that even on a busy day, the beach is one of the most, I would say, you know, not popular beaches, and also when beaches are crowded, they are also not crowded. So we're trying to highlight that in our sales pitch to our tour operators. So you can come and social distance as well on the beaches in Nevis. So we are trying to make sure that our tour operators understand, find some new ways in which that they can sell Nevis, appeal to the audience that are wanting to travel, that this is the place that kind of relax you, you know, get in touch with yourself, your inner self again. So those are some of the things that we're looking towards when we talk to our tour operators. Also, for flights coming into St. Kitts and Nevis from the UK, Gatwick was one of those, I think, airports that were used. Now they're talking about Heathrow. So Heathrow provides a very good opportunity for us where you can, you know, target the European market. Persons can fly from France and other places and go into St. Martin and then come over to Nevis. So those are some of the things that we're looking at in terms of building, so that when we reach out to our tour operators again, that we have something new in order to appeal to them.
Thank you very much, Julie. And this was a very insightful presentation from all three of you. And I'm sure listeners have a lot of questions. I see a lot of activity on the chat board. I also see Taleb Rifai raised his hand to jump in. So we let Taleb do this, and then Peter will lead the discussion. And anyone who has any questions, comments, or ideas, just simply raise your hand, and Peter and we will give you the microphone in the order the request was received.
And we'll
Taleb.
keep going as long as you have questions.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Taleb, you go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I want to thank the team. Jadine, I feel jealous. You're such a passionate person about what you do. I really feel that you're going to succeed. You're going to make this island one of the most visited islands. Congratulations to all of you, you and your team. Truly. I have two questions though. One is, I assume that you're not opened yet. Your airport is not open and your borders are closed. Am I correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
I am correct. Okay. So no in, no out. Nobody goes in, nobody goes out. Am I correct?
We have been repatriating citizens and
That's what
residents for a month
Okay.
or so, but no commercial flights are allowed.
Okay. Repatriation. Did it go through all what Devon has been talking about? Repatriation of your own people?
Yes, that has been taking place for the past couple of months.
You keep them under quarantine?
Yes, they've been quarantined for 14 days, and then they are tested, and then they are able to reconvene
And you haven't had any cases, in even those that came from outside, you didn't have any case?
Not in Nevis, but in St. Kitts there were two, and
Okay.
those were.
You're very lucky. You're very lucky. God bless you. Okay. My question is the following. If you're all closed now, how are you keeping your businesses alive? I mean, hotels, restaurants, are you supporting them in any financial packages or anything like that?
Yeah, the government has extended support in the beginning stages. What we also are doing is making sure that we promote this, sister island activity. So St. Kitts is 6 minutes in a water taxi away. You can have dinner, you can have a staycation. So we've been promoting that as well. We actually had a Culturama experience, which is our carnival, our celebration that happens annually. We had to obviously have a very toned down version of that, but what we did was promote two persons in St. Kitts to come on over and experience Nevis, because sometimes life happens and you're not able to, take the time off and experience that. So we did that, and we were able to kind of get a lot of activity from St. Kitts. So we're really promoting that inter-country travel, that domestic travel, and that's been doing well so far.
Yes, but this inter-country is only between you and St. Kitts.
Well, inter-island, yes, inter-island
Okay.
travel.
Thank you so much. That's what I wanted to know. You're doing a good job. I hope you stay like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think, Taleb, thank you again. Taleb always asks questions that get us right to the point. And so he's, you can tell that he is truly one of the greats of our generation when it comes to tourism. I see lots of people here have questions, and I think if you just raise your hand or let us know that you're interested, we will turn it to you. So this is a great time to have an open discussion. We'll all make comments. I'm sure Taleb will also make some comments, and Juergen will make some comments, and I've never been known not to make comments. So we can all, this is a time when we learn from each other and try to work with each other, make things better. I see that, so who is this? Is there someone who specifically has a comment or a question they'd like to ask?
And, yeah, and there, Peter, there are some comments on on our chat forum, and maybe we can, you see that, I think you can probably see.
Yeah, I see them too.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if anybody had a particular question they wanted to jump in with, or have us read those comments. I know that Edwin Manning from Canada has been kind of giving us insights into how Canada is handling some of the problems. He lives in Ontario, which is...
Hi. Yeah, I do live in Ontario, but I work all over the world. In fact, I was the Canadian representative to the Caribbean in the 70s and did an awful lot of the planning, setting up ACS and so on like that. That said, I have made the analogy between remote communities in Canada and the islands, because they can also self-isolate. There's no other way to get in except by an airplane. And I did make the point that some have essentially tried to create a complete bubble, and they won't even let food come in unless it's dropped from a helicopter, trying to keep themselves safe. While others are looking at how they can open themselves up as a sanctuary destination rather like Nevis. The notion is, what do they expect the visitor to do so as not to infect them? And the same way that what do they have to say to make the visitors know they will be safe? And that is the same discussion that you are having right now in the Caribbean. The one advantage we have at the moment, even with the borders closed, is we have a critical mass of people who would love to get out of the city and just go to nature and get away and self-isolate. And that has kept a lot of the rural and remote communities, tourism alive, just with people from Toronto or Vancouver driving or flying to where they think they can be safe, and the communities doing their best to isolate them. And I've written a couple of things in the comments. But the big issue for us is what are the limits of acceptable change, but the limits of acceptable risk. And I think that is really the focus of a lot of the discussions that we are having. You know, will people risk taking an airplane where they have to change planes in a place that's already off the charts with regard to COVID? What levels of guarantees will they ask? And I know that Jadine and others like you are having to deal with the airlines to make sure that when people do come, you have some assurances that they're not going to wreck the whole system. And it's much easier to ask questions.
Risk is one of the key elements. I think in any form of tourism safety or surety, there's no part of the world that doesn't have some risk. And there's no activity that we can do that's 100% safe. That doesn't exist.
That's right.
So to live in this world, on this planet, you're going to have to deal with risk.
Yep.
Now the question is, at what point does the risk become so great that people don't want to travel, versus the risk is less enough and the opportunities are so good that the opportunities outweigh the risk, or the risk is minor enough that you're willing to take those risks. And that's something that's going to have to be looked through. And one of the things I think would be interesting to hear from our friends from Nevis is, should I get through the system, and let's say I arrive and I do have COVID, what facilities do you have to take care of the person who might end up developing it on the island? What are you, in other words, how would you handle that risk once that happens? Because there's always the potential that someone will get through the system once the borders are opened. So I don't know if any of you have started to think about that, or Jadine, if you guys have come up with a plan, so how you will handle those particular risks. Some of the islands are in better shape than others, so I'm aware of that.
Yes, so we actually have very long meetings every week, as I am a member of the task force, and it is a combination of health professionals, agriculture, customs, immigration. We're all having these very inclusive discussions because we understand how important it is to do this right. We are also one of the last countries to release a date. And a lot of people were asking, why is it taking so long? What's happening? Open our borders. We want to come and visit. But we understand how meticulous and how important it is to do as best as we can for this reopening, because we don't want to shift as many dates. We don't want to have to, go back into quarantine. We don't want that. We want that we are analyzing what other countries are doing. We're seeing how best it fits our model with the resources that we have. But those discussions are ongoing. They're very long, and just be, rest assured that when we say there's a green light, we are confident in that green light.
And so you may want to speak about the fact that you are working not just to reopening, but to make sure the risk is the least possible. And that's one of the reasons why Juergen mentioned the Safer Tourism Seal, which is not saying that you're 100% safe, because you're not. Nobody in this world is 100% safe, but that you have a plan of action to deal with things, one, to hopefully prevent, and secondly, were it to happen, you have a backup plan. You don't have just, there's a hole in the dike, the whole dike is not going to fall down and the ocean's going to come in. So, I congratulate you, but I think the comment about risk is really important, because you don't have to publicize the word risk. I mean, that would probably be a bad marketing strategy, but internally thinking about what are the risks that you can deal with. Can you risk people going through Miami Airport? Yeah. What happens if there's a second wave in England? I know you're doing some, seeing that as a secondary market, the UK, but England is talking about a very strong potential second wave coming in October, just when you all are opening. So those are the types of risks. What will happen as far as cruise ships go, which on some level have had a poor reputation of being almost like petri dishes. Hopefully the tourism industry is working, the cruise industry, really hard to eliminate many of those risks. But those are things as an industry we all have to think about. And so I really want to congratulate you for all your tough thinking.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, it's a lot. And I know Devon spoke to this as well in terms of the training. That undertaking that project or that initiative has been, strenuous, not only for the Nevis Tourism Authority, but also the Ministry of Health, as well as the Ministry of Tourism on Nevis, as well as in St. Kitts. And this is where I know a question was asked about how do our local population feel about reopening the borders. And I know that once they feel confident that they know the procedures and that they've tried, and even with our local reopening, they're actually able to practice certain things. So there is a blessing in us taking our time in this and weighing all factors. Risk is something obviously that we try to mitigate as best as possible, but it's always prevalent. So it's always there. It's always present, I would say. And so with that information, we are exactly. So we understand that, and we're doing as best as possible to educate everyone, make them feel confident and comfortable, and understanding that this is I know we've all heard this word fluid, but it is a very fluid situation. And so things are liable to shift. So we just have to be as prepared as possible. We know what resources we do have. So even if that means the number of flights that are coming in are limited, or the places in which they're coming from are limited, or whatever the case is, because Nevis is a place, we have Four Seasons, and that's our largest hotel. We have a lot of boutique hotels, and that Four Seasons has 189 rooms and over 40 villas. But a lot of our hotels range from 11 rooms to 36 rooms. And so we know that we know what we have. So we have to be able to create a procedure and a protocol that works for us. And that's what we're doing. That's why we're spending very long nights having these discussions with all stakeholders.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Jadine. There are some questions on our chat forum. And again, we encourage everyone just to raise their hand, and you can actually ask these questions directly. Otherwise, Peter, we can probably just read down from the list. There is Denise Aliong. She's asking, when you open your borders, will there be a mandatory quarantine period for visitors?
We can't speak on the protocols yet because we have not finalized them. But what we are doing, as we mentioned, is working with all stakeholders to figure out the exact protocols that will work for us. So right now, there are no set protocols, so I can't speak to that. But when they are released, we'll definitely share them and make sure that everyone is aware. We're working on artwork and videos and really making sure that the messaging is clear, that it's accessible, that you're able to find it easily. And so that's what we're working on currently.
Okay, then there is Juergen Koset asking, Nevis has a great opportunity to welcome tourists for a long period of time, possible semi-retired people that can work remotely. Is this a market you're targeting?
We're definitely looking into that. We also have a citizenship by investment program that has been pretty popular. And because we have maintained cases as best as possible, a lot of people are looking into that, and that's by investment, and there are more information from CBI through St. Kitts and Nevis. But that is definitely what we're looking into. We've seen other destinations do it, and we know that it is we are perfect for it. So that is an ongoing discussion, and we are hoping that we can hopefully share some more information about that soon.
By the way, you do have excellent mangoes.
Yes.
and then we have
being a mango fan also, which has nothing to do with tourism safety, but I felt obliged to support you on the mango issue.
Yes, thank you.
One of the things I think is going to be really interesting is how do we keep people occupied when, should they have to be put into quarantine? In other words, will we be showing, are we going to have extra films? How will people, if you're stuck in quarantine, what do you do for those 14 days? And I don't know if anybody's thought that through yet, but that's a kind of secondary risk. It's the risk of boredom. You won't die of COVID, but you might die of boredom if you're stuck in a hotel room. I'm supposed to be this week in Korea, and I didn't go because they told me I'd have to be in for 2 weeks, and I couldn't leave my hotel room for 2 weeks. I would have to eat in my hotel room.
One of my,
said, you know what? It's not worth it.
One of my colleagues has just returned to Ecuador, Louis Marquez. We're writing a book together on sustainable tourism in the Americas. He has managed successfully to get himself stranded for 15 days in a golf resort. The government essentially has set up about a dozen resorts throughout Ecuador where people like him can sequester for 14 days. And he says that it's not bad. He is actually allowed out for walks and stuff like that, but he is surrounded by military.
Yeah.
So we shall see what
country's going to have
happens.
its own system. And so those are things to think about, because that's another risk, that has to be looked at. And I want to emphasize that. I want to switch it a little bit. Somebody has asked, and I don't see it right now, but it came up 2 or 3 times, about the issue of, is Nevis not gay friendly? And it was obviously an important issue because I see the questions come up 1 or 2 times. I actually read some material on it, and the material that I read had nothing really very negative to say about Nevis. But as the question has come up, I thought, as we have the experts, I need to at least, to say it or ask the question.
Yeah, I think Richard Krieger typed in a question.
Yeah,
and he was concerned about this. Yes,
more than one person asked that question.
Yeah, I saw something about policy mentioned, and I can't speak to that. But in terms of the Nevisian people are extremely welcoming. There are a lot of places that you have to worry about just being yourself in certain spaces, and that is not a place like Nevis at all. We are extremely open. We're extremely welcoming. There's a sense of community, and I spoke to that before. So in terms of the policy, I'm not sure, and I cannot speak to that. But in terms of the actual environment here, definitely open.
Yeah, and I can say the same for St. Kitts, by the way. But both.
Yes.
I have not been to Nevis, unfortunately, but I spent time in Nevis and St. Kitts training the police, and people were extremely caring and understanding and loving. So,
agreed.
I would support everything you're just saying.
Yeah.
And we can see this with Jadine, she really has passion when she talks about Nevis. And
definitely.
It's so refreshing. We all want to travel again,
Yes, I think we're all looking forward to going to your mango festival.
Yes, it's going to be great. The food is awesome.
Peter.
Yes.
Peter, if I may.
Yes,
I think Nevis should be commended for using this idle time to prepare themselves. I don't think any nation in the world I have heard of have used this idle time to prepare themselves to the opening day. Now, most of the destinations have opened so quickly, so suddenly, and they had setbacks now. I think you're doing a great job now, keeping everything under your control until you feel you're absolutely confident that you have everybody trained, everybody accustomed to do that. That's one thing that we must say. In Jordan here, for example, we still have our borders closed, but the repatriation of Jordanians that were working abroad had brought us so many cases. Now the cases are in increase, and the people started to open up a little bit. So this opening up is becoming very costly to us. I commend the fact that you are really sticking to what you're doing, and you're using your time very carefully in preparing the people, because people have to be prepared. People are not used to this. It's not, you can't expect, no matter how good people are, they can't be expected to just bounce back and act the way you want them to act. So I'm very, very happy to hear this from you, Jadine, and from everybody else.
Taleb, I think you're underlining the point. Don't just open, prepare to open. And
that's
that
right.
Prepare the public to open, not just
yes.
preparing the hotel. Tourists don't just sit in a hotel; they interact with the local population.
Yes.
And
the only thing, Peter, is that the price of keeping closed sometimes in some bigger destinations is too high.
Yes, it's
so
very high.
Yes, very high in employment, in economic terms, and everything. So somehow I had the feeling a month ago that there was an order from somebody up in heaven, say, yeah, now you open. Everybody opened at the same time. When that happened, everything went back the way it was at the beginning. Now I'm glad that Navis is not listening to that order coming from wherever it's coming. You're doing it your own way. And this is a very, very commendable thing, because now is the age of each country being on its own, really.
Yeah.
We have lost our control over international and even regional systems. So each country will have to be depending on its own rules and own regulations. Thank you.
Jadine and your team, somebody wanted to know if you would speak about any form of contact tracing that you're planning on doing, and how are you handling or will handle contact tracing? So should somebody in the system and have be diagnosed with COVID, how will you figure out who else that person is coming into contact with?
Mm-hmm. We spoke a bit about the app that we're developing. So we have a Nevis Health app currently, but we're working on a federal app, and we hope to use that to help us in terms of contact tracing. As it stands, even for our training.
Sorry, but by federal you mean you and St. Kitts, right?
Yes, the Federation of the Federation.
Yeah. Pardon? You don't include anybody else, only the two of you.
Yes,
that's
so
the Federation.
Yes.
The Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. So we're working on developing an app that would be able to be used to assist in that process. But even to our training, we had to, document everyone's temperature. We had everyone's name. We had everyone's information that came and attended the training. These are the measures in which we're taking, even as our borders are closed, to make sure that we can contact trace if there is a case that just magically pops up. And so there are a lot of conversations happening, but we hope to utilize our app to help with contact tracing.
Okay. So again, the real theme is that during this lull, you're trying to do everything possible to try to be prepared. So when October comes, you're ready to go.
Completely. We are working very, very hard on that. And again, it's
October is your target. October is your target.
Yes, the target, yes.
Good.
Yes. And are you advertising that target around the world, or is it still kind of under wraps, or?
We've mentioned it. We've said the month of October. There has not been any specific date mentioned. Yes. However, again, the hotels are preparing. They're getting their specials ready. They're getting their properties ready. So we are subtly sharing the information. And as we come closer to an actual date, we will definitely blow the horns and sound the trumpets.
Yes. I'd like to ask you a bit about the economic losses. Have you been able to tabulate that? Have you lost any jobs? How can you describe your economic loss in this lockdown period?
I think all of our neighboring islands can attest to this. We've all seen, significant loss. Our borders have been closed, and our GDP attributes to over 60% to tourism. And so we've seen a bit of effects from that. And so I know the government is working on helping persons, sustain during this time, to be quite honest. And that's why we're looking to be very strategic in the reopening, because we want to have a season that actually, bears fruit. We want that, although we know we're not going to get the season that we might have projected last year or 2 years ago, we understand that we can work very diligently if we, have these conversations and these discussions and prepare ourselves for a season that we hope to begin in October, November. So there has been job losses.
Your people, are they cooperating? Are they understanding this?
Very much so. They are, I would say that is something that we're blessed with, is that divisions are very understanding. You'll see masks being worn all the time. We don't have challenges in that regard. And we also have no active cases. So with that, and we're seeing the cooperation of our public is really, something that we're really confident and happy about, because we know that when we do reopen, we don't have to then get everybody in gear like, okay, now we have to wear masks. Now we need to social distance.
No, I'm talking about economic hardship.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you mean in terms of how are they dealing and coping?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're very resilient people. There has not been any fallout right now. Again, the government was supporting a lot of persons that have been laid off. But the reason why we are looking to have staycations and, increase the economy locally is because of that. We want people to be able to go back to work as soon as possible. But we also understand that in order for us to get back to a certain space that we are vaguely familiar with, we have to prepare ourselves. So I think there has been a resounding understanding. Obviously, people are being affected and we cannot take that for granted whatsoever, but we are trying to kind of weigh the risk as well as the safety and health of our citizens, residents, and, future travelers.
Congratulations.
So two questions that people have been asking. One is, will your flights be mainly direct? Are there going to be flights that stop along the way? And therefore, how will you deal with that issue? In other words, do I go straight from New York to Nevis? Or does it go New York, Miami, St. Kitts, Nevis, and going through terminals? Even if I leave New York, let's say, and I'm well, by the time I've gone through 3 terminals, will I not be well? So, or will all the flights be direct flight from Terminal A to Nevis?
There was Edward Manning who asked this question, by the way.
So we're not sure what the legs will look like in terms of the flight.
How do they look like now? How do they look like now? Before COVID.
So we had direct flights from New York, from Atlanta, and a lot of them were seasonal as well. From Dallas, we had direct flight, and this is to St. Kitts. So from St. Kitts to Nevis is a 6-minute water taxi or a ferry for 30 minutes. So it's a very easy transition in terms of that. And again, we're part of a federation. So, as soon as you land in St. Kitts and you head over to St. Kitts, then
yes.
yeah. So
any direct European connections?
So yes, from not direct, we stop over in Antigua for the UK flight traditionally. And then you don't disembark, you stay on the flight, and then you head over to St. Kitts. So there are definitely layovers from the UK, and in the US there are direct flights traditionally from Miami and New York and Atlanta, but some are seasonal. So as we start to have the conversations about what flights we are going to reconvene, obviously we understand limiting the amount of connections is something everybody wants, but we're also looking, because we are I would say a barefoot luxury destination, we're looking into private jet travel and seeing which ways we can kind of accommodate that as well. So we have an airport in Nevis, the Vance Amory Airport, and hopefully we are able to welcome private jets either to park in St. Kitts because of the runway and parking facilities, or in Nevis.
I think it's important to underline.
You have to consider the states as a barrier right now.
That correct me if I'm wrong, but much of your tourism is high-end tourism. It's not, mass tourism, but therefore you have a slightly different situation. And I think a lot of the people are from the higher end of the tourism spectrum, and they're kind of coming to get away. But you've not been known as an economy destination.
I think you will see some changing in the hubs as well. For a lot of the Caribbean, Miami used to be the only place you could get from one island to the other virtually. That has changed. But for a lot of people, because of their visa issue and also the current COVID thing, the U.S. has become a barrier for cities that don't have direct access to a Caribbean island. The question I raised was very Canadian in orient, because there's 26 flights every Sunday used to go to Havana and to Veradero from my city alone. So the volume going there in Cancun was almost as much, but they were trying to avoid having to go through the U.S. because so many people did not wish to have to emigrate, have visas and so forth, to the point where several Caribbean hubs like Cancun have really taken over a lot of the inter-Caribbean exchange. The other question associated with this is, do you have the ability to stop people from coming to Nevis from St. Kitts or from some of the other islands close by? Is it managed separately in terms of being able to control access for tourism, for COVID, or are you thrown into the same basket, at least with St. Kitts?
Well, we would not want to stop people from coming to Nevis from St. Kitts because, again, we're under one federation. So what happens in St. Kitts is what's going to happen in Nevis in terms of the protocol.
Yes.
Right. And so
that's logical.
Yeah, so that's
logical.
So to promote that, and that's something that we're able to manage collectively. But as it pertains to the neighboring islands, again, our borders are closed, and how we reopen is going to be, the conversation piece that we're continuing to have and that we'll share. But again, it's making sure that we can handle the risk as best as possible, and that's why those discussions are taking place.
That I think will be
what Edward said, Peter, if I may, confirms what you said from the beginning. This may be an opportunity now, because the situation before COVID, of everybody having to go to Miami or to other destinations from going from one island to another, was not the right thing to do, really.
No.
And I think it's an opportunity now for the Caribbean islands to start thinking of their own needs by themselves.
Right.
It's an opportunity for Africans as well. We were working, Peter and I, with Africa.
It was dominated by one airline that did not do a very good job. And so this will allow multiple airlines, and competition will improve service.
Definitely.
So the idea that there'll be competition. I think we have time for one last question. Someone, Colleen Bidwell, wrote and said that she'd like to know, how much is the drive to, and these are her words, recover pre-COVID, what's known as build better, and what's new, and what innovation adaptations are you guys putting in? So I think you've mentioned a lot of these already, but maybe she wasn't there when you first started to speak about it. And so maybe you could give it as kind of a summary, Jadine, of some of the innovations that you're doing. And I think one of the big innovations is using the time when your borders are closed to prepare. That's a major innovation
Definitely.
in itself.
I think what this has done, COVID, has allowed us, I think all in the tourism industry, is to really reset and repurpose and refocus. And so now we're using this time, and I hope everyone is using this time, to really look at what has been working and what will no longer work. Without change, there's no movement, and we understand that. And so right now we're working, like I said, in terms of our digital footprint, increasing that. We're working with health officials. We're understanding how important collaboration is. We're definitely in the space of innovation. So there are several conversations happening simultaneously about what we're going to do moving forward, from airlift to immigration processes. So there's just so many discussions taking place, and we're seeing the effects of that, and we're also seeing the results of that. And so as soon as things are confirmed, dotted, and crossed, we are going to share that very loudly and very proudly. But we are definitely working very, very hard in terms of the innovation aspect. We're looking to all of, there's so many countries that are doing spectacular things, and there's some countries that are still trying to find their footing, and we're trying to figure out what works best for us. We are a small place. We are 12,000 persons, 36 square miles. We understand what we can do and what we can't do, and we understand that we have to model it to best suit us and our traveler. And we really want to be able to provide an authentic Navision experience. And again, we're going back to that, because sand, sea, and sun, we can say forever and ever, but there's so many places that are able to offer that. What we want to provide is really an authentic experience. And so through innovation and through several conversations, and again, digital platforms, apps, all sorts of great things we're working on, and hopefully we'll share soon.
I really want to congratulate you. That last statement about sand, sea, and sun are in a lot of places around the world. The sun shines almost everywhere. Maybe not northern Canada, but most places. And the fact that you guys are coming up with a unique experience versus just the repetition of what everybody else is doing, really wonderful, and to be congratulated, because that's important. I think we're pretty much done with our time. Unless, Juergen, you have something you want to flip it over to you. I do want to remind people, if you're interested in our Safer Tourism Seal, please let us know. And you can learn lots about what we're doing on rebuilding.travel. And you'll be able to hear a recording also from this session. So please, be in contact with us. You can get everybody's email or through rebuilding.travel. So please let us hear from you.
Yeah, and thank you so much. We're 20 minutes over our time, so it was very interesting. And we really wanted to thank Julie, Jadine, and Devon for attending and giving us some insight on Navis. I learned a lot, and we hope we can stay in contact. I hope Navis will join our family at rebuilding.travel. And anyone who hasn't signed up for rebuilding.travel can easily do this on the same website. Everyone who registered for this session will receive a recording also by email, a link to the YouTube. But easier, all the sessions are all now combined, both podcast and video sessions, and we will convert this also into a podcast, are on all major platforms, Google, Spotify, Apple, but more important on our own livestream.travel. So if you go to livestream.travel, you find all the rebuilding.travel sessions and many other sessions we do from eTurboNews and other platforms. And I wanted to thank everyone for attending. I wanted to wish a warm aloha from our island, Hawaii, to the island of Nevis. And we hope to see you all again very soon. And we have some other exciting sessions coming up next week, so stay tuned. We will let everyone know. And we see you soon. You have a good day, good morning, good night.
Thank you, Everett. Taleb, it was great to see you again. Edward Manning, thank you for all your comments. And of course, Jadine and her crew, you guys were wonderful. So take care.
You truly were.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you.